I had goosebumps. I mean, I was running around like a little kid out there, like, jumping around. You saw a bunch of guys, acting out of character. These grown men around here acting like little kids, look like they run around with diamonds on.
And crying and running
around. We just literally making history, and I was.
You couldn't get too close to Dan because he was just
coming off
surgery.
He was like this.
He always like this. You couldn't run up on Dan too much because
you shake his hand.
Obviously, being on stage and celebrating was awesome when everybody was doing a Dirty Bird and Dan was doing it. They were like, after that, they were like, hey, take the NFC trophy around the stadium and celebrate with your friends. And the TV production, it was a production, And of course, being the thespian that I am, I'm like, generate some tears, my G.
He said, generate some tears.
Anderson was the running room. 10, 5, touchdown, Jamal Anderson, another touchdown. The middle, O.J. Santiago, touchdown, Falcons. Wow. End zone, touchdown, Falcons. Terance Mathis all by himself in the back of the end zone. Play action, looking across the middle, picked off, down, Dirty Bird, and Falcons have won the football game. Kick, high, hit over end, it's gone, and the Falcons are going to the Super Bowl.
In 1998, the Falcons finished their regular season 14-2, which is still the winningest football team in Falcons history. But they were just getting started. In the postseason, they would see 3 different teams, and all of them were great games. Guys, thank you again for being back here to talk about the postseason. Let's talk about the 49ers first. I mean, 3rd time in the season that you saw them hosting it in the Georgia Dome. I mean, a lot of you, this was your first time in the playoffs. What was it like to be in the playoffs and also host it?
I think it was amazing. You know what is funny about that game? I remember a bunch of us were out when the 49ers played Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
The 49ers played Green Bay.
Miracle catch.
Yeah. I want to be clear. I did not want to play the 49ers for a 3rd time. Like they beat us, we fought back first game. We got them pretty good the 2nd time. But I wanted to play Green Bay. I was like, man, we played them twice a year. Like, I'm just done with it. And plus, I already knew what they, how dangerous they were, When T.O. makes that catch and they win, I'm like, here we go again. I think it was probably the best team for us to play to prepare ourselves for Minnesota, seriously, But I was just excited that we were hosting a playoff game and that the Dome was going to be rocking and the city was electric,
I think going into that game, when we knew I didn't feel we was going to lose it. We weren't afraid of them. It was like, for the first time, we get a chance to beat the bully again. Yeah. And that's the way I felt about it. But that game was a blur to me because I was up the night before because my daughter was born at 6 that morning. So I went into that game feeling good, and my daughter was born. It's a good day. We're going to win this game. So I think for us beating them proved that, hey, we the new bullies on the block. And after that game, it was like sky was the limit.
I've tasted the playoffs, previously with the Colts, but, this felt different, and more importantly, the way the recognition that the team was actually getting, the buzz that was actually being created. Now you're starting to see the ESPNs, a lot of the major networks, starting to get interviewed. I think everybody was starting to get their due because everybody didn't really know about a lot of the players. So now we got a chance nationally to go prove a point, to go show the world what we can do and what we can play. And I was licking my chops. I promise you, a lot of people were probably a little bit nervous or scared of the GOAT, but I love playing Jerry. I love seeing T.O. I love playing them cats because it was so competitive. And the battles were so juicy,
I think the first time, though, I think the first time in the history of this game between the Falcons and the 49ers were worried.
Oh, they were nervous coming into that one.
That game, they were worried. If the way they came out, they looked a little like unsure.
Yep.
And, what are we about to get into whatsoever? So it, like you said, it was one of those, come on,
Yep, come on.
Bring it on.
They knew that it was on.
Yeah.
They knew that it was on. It was just fact that we had to go out there and do it. And what was so funny to me, I was giggling a lot of the times. I was laughing. I used to watch, I watched all of the reruns from the first game or the second game. I'm watching the tape. And it had me cracking up watching everybody. I just love when he was hitting Morten Hanks and that long neck. And they did not want to tackle this dude no more. He was literally bullying the whole secondary. They did not want to tackle him. They didn't want to see him. Chandler, typically playing at his best around that time too, was on fire. A lot of people ain't give Chan, man, the quarterback, a lot of the credit. This dude was so on point throwing the rock. He had them nervous. Defensively, we already had them rattled. And now was the chance to now put it on national TV. I was like, boy, this is about to be epic. If we can do what we need to do, it was fun.
It was a fun game. It went by so fast too, but it was a fun game.
Now listen, that was a confident game for us too, and we hadn't lost at home all year long, and it was the playoffs. It was just time for us to show everybody what we could do. We knew what we could do. We felt like we had a great team, and it was just we wanted the city to be on the map now. We wanted everyone to see us come out here and beat the 49ers in the playoffs.
A dogfight.
Yeah, it was still a dogfight.
A dogfight.
OJ, I have to ask you because to speak on behalf of the lines, both offensive and defensive, there were a couple false starts and offsides that happened for both the 49ers and the Falcons. Do you think that was more of like nerves or just like we're in a divisional round and loser goes home and we're going to leave it all on the
It was
field?
definitely a big moment. I think it was a big moment. You felt that playing the 49ers, they were the best team in the playoffs in the NFC that year. That's how you felt going in. And even though we had a better record, you just felt like they still have the better team. Traditionally, they have the better team. In terms of the fans and everybody around the country, they figured the 49ers have the better team. But we knew what we had, and I think that was a big deal. And our fans knew what we had. And I think that's when you see all that the atmosphere, and it was a playoff game, but it felt like a championship game in there that day.
Man, it did. It was so loud.
Yeah, that was a big game. That was
I can
a huge
see it.
game.
I can vision that day, man. Oh my God. That game was so much fun. I remember I have a picture of it. I caught a ball. I shouldn't have caught it. It was just, and I'm sitting on my butt, just clapping my hands, and I'm just laughing. I'm going, that shouldn't have happened. So that's when you know things are going right, when things are happening that shouldn't happen.
And Jerry Rice dropped a bunch of balls.
Jerry Rice dropped the ball.
In the end zone, he dropped a couple, right?
He dropped the ball in the end zone, I mean, it was
And
our
I think
time.
Garrison Hurd broke his ankle. I want to say broke his ankle in the
that
first quarter. So
Garrison
a couple
Hurd was
things
a
went our way.
monster that year, and he got hurt early on. Now, mind you, Terry Kirby was not.
He was still.
Terry Kirby was no joke.
They had a team. They had a squad.
Yeah, they were
really good team.
deep. They were deep. That's why I say anytime you line up and you got to play like Brian Young and Dana Stubblefield, like Brian, I mean, come on. Brian was here, as you know.
And Dolman had a good year that year,
yeah,
too.
Dolman's there.
I mean,
They got Ken Norton,
Ken
that
Norton,
linebacker.
it was just our year. You look at it, you look back and you go, wow, man.
Very talented team, though. It was a dogfight, though.
I have to ask you, Ray, because you had a pass breakup against, I mean, you were on Jerry Rice the entire game, but the last sequence for the 49ers, you had a pass breakup against Jerry Rice, and then Eugene Robinson had the interception to seal the game. You were on the field, y'all were on the sidelines watching. What was that, last sequence like for you?
It was nerve-wracking, knowing that they had the opportunity to try to come down to score, and we had to stop them. The 49ers been doing it so many times. You've seen it so many times before. Their 2-minute game was pretty good. It was like, who do you cover? Jerry Rice, they want to throw him the ball. You had T.O. coming across the middle, J.J. Stokes, screens, to Terry Kirby at that particular time, and Steve Young. He was still that dude, but we were getting after his buns that whole game. Like they was literally putting them on his back. Even though they didn't get the sacks, they were putting them on his back a lot, and he got tired of getting hit. But breaking up the pass coming up, and then putting them in the situation to where they was in 3rd and long or 4th and long to try to seal the game was that we knew we had them. We was like, all right, if that ball's in the air, we had some ball hawks that was going to eventually get the ball. I think on that last interception. On that particular game, Will White and Eugene Robinson was fighting for the ball. Actually, when they went down for the longest, for about 2 to 3 minutes, I'm like, dude, the game is over. We got the ball. I don't care which one of y'all get the interception. Game over. I think it's over. But it was For me, my hair has always stood up for those opportunities to have games to where the game's actually on the line. Just for the sake of the adrenaline. I was an adrenaline junkie, so it was fun, but
Yes, you were.
We do know that.
yeah, but at the same time, like Jamal said, we wanted this thing to be over because we were not looking ahead, but we know we done beat these guys before. We don't need to let this one slip up and let them score.
We knew what it was for.
We had to get to
knew
that
exactly what it
NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Before we touch on the NFC Championship, I want to ask the three of you, since y'all were on the sidelines and the interception sealed the game, and for the first time in Falcons history, you would be moving on to the championship game. What was that moment like, to be on the sidelines, to be with your coaches and all of your teammates around you?
I felt confidence that we was going to get the stop because they had a long ways to go. And when you know it's your time, you can feel it. Sometimes, you lose games. You could be at 500 and you don't know which way it's going to go. But we were division champions and we were on the roll, and it was like, and you sitting there watching this defense, and every time the ball go up, you go look this way, you look and see where the defense guy is. Oh, that's a pick. It's over, and it's like, it's over. And like Jamal said, it's like, we did it.
Yeah. I mean, it is Steve Young.
It is Steve Young and Jerry Rice.
Yeah, you got goats.
You ever seen Steve Young in person?
Not in person, but
Yeah, I mean,
These some goats.
talk about surgical, and
Yeah.
he looks like a
Like a doctor.
day trader. Like, we're not talking about somebody coming in here like Cam Newton.
Yeah.
You know what I
He
mean?
does, just-
Like, my man looks like a day trader. He is lighting you up and taking all the hits. It's like, what? This?
Yeah, and he was elusive.
Yeah.
He was elusive. I appreciated it, towards the end of it, because more importantly, it was like, wow, we were setting records and we were going, winning the division, getting to
Does
the
matter more when you put a Hall of Famer.
I was about to
and
say
we gonna
that.
get some goats.
That was the first group of Hall of Famers we beat.
Yeah.
And then there come the next group we had to face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Falcons in itself were setting records. And that was, division. That was the first time I think they ever won the division. And then, the NFC, getting to the NFC, it's another milestone. Getting there. Here it is. Here we go. Rodney Dangerfield again. We got to go now up against, going up against the Vikings.
The purple people eaters.
The Purple People Eaters in Minnesota.
In Minnesota.
I know. I think they played Arizona, right? It must have beat them
beat them down.
like maybe by 50 points or something.
Yeah.
So Arizona went up there, and we were like, yeah, of course we're going to Minnesota.
Yep.
But I just remember thinking that the whole week, like, we're having this historic season. Like, who has had to go on the road at 14-2 to play in the NFC Championship? You know what I mean?
But they was having a better season.
No, they were having an unbelievable season, which was
Man.
which was one thing I always thought that was crazy, because I was like, how well we were playing, but then we were chasing the Vikings, the 49ers were chasing us, and I was just like, man, it was just crazy.
And everybody matched up well.
Yeah,
Everything that you saw.
the top of the conference was very tough,
Like numbers-wise, everything matched up. It was like, man, all right, this right here is going to be a dog fight, a boxing match, because they were leading the league, in scoring, in the air. They had 2,000-yard receiver. They had over 1,000-yard rusher. Their defense was just ranked as high as our defense. They were turning over the ball. It was like they matched up just as well
they were loaded.
as we did.
I think they might have been the most prolific offense in history at the time.
Randy Moss set a record, a rookie record that particular
It was funny. When we went to Minnesota, like, I had this routine, like going to the movies before the game or whatever, and we went to Mall of America. And when the people saw us and recognized who we were, they were so nice. It was crazy. And then they let us get on the roller coaster, cut the whole line, because they were like, you guys had a good season. You played so strong this year. Go get them, Dirty Birds. It's over. I was like, oh, they think we're about to lose.
Right.
I could not believe it. I was like, they think we came here to lose. Like, I was like, okay. So
We had to start calling other guys. We had gone in there, and there was a Foot Locker Finish Line, one of those type stores. And, we always went to the mall. We went somewhere to eat the night before the game with position groups or whatever. We get in the mall, and you see the whole back wall of the whole back wall of the store says NFC Championship, Super Bowl, this, that, and the next.
Oh,
All
yeah.
Minnesota.
They
They
had
had
the
the
gear.
gear.
It was
They had the hats.
It was a foregone
everything.
conclusion.
And I had never seen anything like that before. I didn't know you could print all that stuff up and put it in the store.
Put it and sell it
before the game
sell it
even
before the game
happens,
even
right?
happens.
I have a picture of me, Brooking, Ben Huff, Chuck Smith, I think Chi-Chi. We were on the roller coaster, like, you know, when they take the picture on the roller coaster. When the people let us go, I said, they're letting us go. Yeah, you guys go. Have a good time.
We opened up the sports section, and the front page was Vikings to Miami. And we didn't even play the game
listen,
yet. And we were going, what are you doing?
That night.
But you gotta understand, remember now, we get there and introductions was supposed to happen. And they mixed up the introductions. Remember they says, well, we knew it was a defense term. They said, no, it's offense.
Offense.
So then we went out there, then the guy said, no, it's defense. So the defense went out there, so they started announcing offensive players as the defense were coming out. So we said, what a total disrespect. So the defense just came, ran out, and we all gathered up together. And that was another moment where we just came together and said, it's us against the world.
I remember bumping music in the locker room before the game, too. Holyfield was with us, too. Holyfield flew. I think he flew on our plane, didn't he?
I don't remember.
I think he might have flown with us.
Yeah. And you know, it wasn't just the fans there. It was the media too. I mean, the questions that they was asking us, I was like, wait a minute, hold on, dog.
Wait a minute. You don't know who we are?
You ain't been watching our film?
No, but nobody had been watching. Nobody had been watching our team. The Minnesota Vikings are 15-1. They got Moss and Chris Carter, and nobody knows we've got Terance Mathis and Tony Martin, who are right behind them. I mean, right behind them statistically. Maybe
right behind.
A catch or two off. So we had the same stats. We had everything going, but no respect. And it started to really get to a certain point, like you can tell Ray, but it's a boiling point where we just felt like nobody respects us, period, right? And that was a great game to play in.
I don't ever really get mad, So, you have guys on other teams that, your friends, your boys, whatsoever, Chris Carter, I've been friends forever, I'm a big brother. So, before the game, while you warming up, you go over, it's like, what's up? Give a bro hug, whatsoever. What's up? And he turned his back on me. And that's the first time I ever went off on somebody before a game. And I said, oh, you gonna play me like that? That's why we're gonna kick y'all. Then I went to Tony. I said, Tony, this is what we're gonna do. I said, we're gonna outplay these jokers. We're gonna outplay Randy and Chris today. And he said, let's do it. And at the end of the day, if you look at the stats, we outplayed Randy and Chris.
I want to ask about the Metrodome because, so many people about that game in particular said it was the loudest they had ever heard it, ever. How loud was it to hear the call, to be in a huddle? Like, how loud was it actually?
It was worse on them than it was.
But you know what's crazy, though? We practice with loudspeakers. And like static, like Dan Reeves would have them things on the sidelines blasting. So by the time we I don't remember the first time we even did it, but we definitely did it for practice for Minnesota. So we were operating in silence and signals already, And so it was like we really understood that they had a tremendous advantage and that it was a crazy crowd. And I remember I have a routine of going out before the team warms up to do my own warm up, and the Minnesota fans found out about this, and they must have let them in early or whatever. So they decided that they were going to be screaming at me, all kinds of stuff, and then in my end zone that I warm up in, and I remember I almost messed up the Dirty Birds. I was looking for the group of people because I knew that's where their seats were. That when I scored the first touchdown in that game, I was trying to dance so hard. I was so heated, and I was looking for them. So I think I pointed before I even did it, this is for you, sucker. Because they were like, you ain't gonna be dancing today. You gonna be dancing here today.
It was one of those, you knew you was in the lion's den. You knew you was in a lion's den. Yeah. And the only way we could get out of it is we played together. And we didn't get rattled because we got down early in that game. And the key play of that game was right before half when Chuck made that sack. They should have downed the ball and went into halftime whatsoever. They got greedy. And Chuck got the strip sack. And then we scored the next play, and that momentum shift just like that.
But it was so loud. I used to say they was cheating. I thought they had big speakers and extra speakers that making it extra loud in there. But what I was saying that it was harder on them because when the offense was out there on the field, that's when they're making this most noise for the defense. When we were out there, you can almost hear a pin drop, not unless they actually made a big play. Going back to what Terance was actually saying about how the game was going of us getting down. We got into that mode in the beginning. We were shooting ourselves in the foot. We had 2 turnovers, putting that ball on the ground. Yeah, Juice one time. But that was kind of a fluke because Juice was actually almost falling on the ground and hit it. I think it popped out, by itself. And Harold Green actually had one. There was another fumble that actually happened. So one thing we could not do is shoot ourselves in the foot against them. Because they was a high-scoring team already. And when we turned over the ball, I'm like, what? Y'all put me back out there with Randy? Y'all go back out there and play defense then. Every time I had to go back out there, I knew I had to go up against this dude, Randy Moss and Chris Carter, as he was talking about and how he was actually playing. Chris was running his mouth the whole game. Randy was already making highlight horror flicks. Like the film that we was watching previous to what we was watching. I'm looking at these games like, is anybody covering this guy? Like he was just jumping over, when they call him Moss and him jumping over everybody. One, he ran a 4.2, 4.3, and he was 6'4". And the dude had this, I think he had a bird's eye view. His eyes literally can be like an eagle to where he can notice that ball in the air and pluck it out of the air on anybody. And that whole week, I'm like, all right, let's not put ourselves in position that many times, to let these boys, go deep in special territory. We took on a challenge defensively to hit them dudes in the mouth. They'd never been in a dogfight, ever. That whole year, they had one dogfight, and that was against Tampa.
But that way, and you couldn't relax in that game. It seemed like it was always third down. It seemed like they were on the verge of making a big play. You got Randy Mossy thinking it's always, all they need is one ball. It's like, this is never going to be over.
Every time you see the ball go up in the air, we stand on silent.
They were so explosive. They had an explosive team, and it was just such a close game. And I remember I fumbled early in that game. I just kept saying, please, 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 give me another shot, give me another shot.
And he had, after we went into overtime,
he
had the play the play that won it was his catch. He caught this ball, and I thought you was gonna score.
All I was thinking was, man, it was third down anyway. It was third and long, and I think I had 2 third down catches in that overtime, and all I was thinking again was redemption, man. You got to end this on a better note. You know what I mean? If we go out, it doesn't matter how we go out. But I can't go out here fumbling this ball. But it was just, again, it was one of those games where you got it from everywhere. You got a field goal kicker who puts it puts it in the uprights as time runs out. Jamal is running. Terance is scoring, making big plays. The defense is coming up huge. It was one of those games. It was just a tight game. It was never time you could rest at any point during that game. And that was an amazing game to play.
I was impressed by that was the first time we was ever down.
This is what I was going to say. When I think one thing that we were all acutely aware of is that they were what they presented offensively.
Right.
There could be a time in this game where they're going to be up by double digits.
Right.
You got to just.
We knew that offensively. We knew that.
And I think that's how we handled when it did happen, and then made plays to kind of bounce back to where it wouldn't get to a point. But we realized at some point in time, hey man, they're prolific offensively. So but we got to stay with it. We got to stay in it and continue to believe in ourselves. Exactly.
Keep it close.
We blew some teams out, but we had been in some contests where we had to fight back, where we were contested, where we had to regain a lead. Minnesota hadn't. It was like they were blowing everybody out.
You can tell because they made some bad decisions in that game.
When it got tight, we were used to this.
Yeah. They were up going into half. All they had to do was down to kneel the ball 3 times, and they up 2 scores going into halftime with almost 20-something points, and they decided they wanted to get greedy. And then they had situations where it's 3rd and short, and they want to throw it deep down the field. And I'm going, y'all just playing into our hands.
Thank you.
So
Robert
that
Smith.
was their arrogance and cockiness that says, oh, we've been doing this all year, we're gonna do it to you. But they don't know, we make plays. We make plays when we need to make plays, and that's what our defense was.
You said that the Vikings were up at the half, 20-14. What was the atmosphere in the locker room like? You know, it's now or never, win or go home. What was going on in the locker room?
Well, you know, we had, which was another kind of a crazy part of the game is, you know, the Vikings were intent on not letting me beat them. Like they were like, whatever is going to happen. And so, you know, this is a game unlike any other game. I think I had 8 catches, and a lot of them were like bops to keep us moving. And like when an OJ's 2 huge pickups, and then obviously Terance and Tony, this is what they do. But this was a unique game for me because I was more like another lineman. Like I was doing blitz pickups, chip blocking, because Chandler was killing it. And I was like, man, I don't care how we get there. I don't care. As long as if we're having success and we're doing it. And I think that's another thing about us that I could say was so fantastic is that everybody was unselfish. So it wasn't like, you know, I say it's my favorite game because of what we accomplished as a team. Obviously, statistically, no. I mean, I think I had like 70 yards rushing, maybe 60 something. I don't even know. But I did the rest in passing, and most importantly, I had some huge blitz pickups that freed up space for Chandler to be able to do what he did. And so I'm like, that's my favorite game.
And I thought about it from this point of view. I was like, man, the plays that we gave them, they turned into scores. So we had fumbled, they scored. So it was almost like we gave them. We felt like they really didn't earn anything yet. And when we got to that locker room to answer that question, it was more like, dog, we got this. As long as if we stay in the game and we keep them in the close game and keep hitting them in the mouth and not, you know, shoot ourselves in the foot, we can compete with them, and they knew it. So by us, you know, going into the half and them not looking, and on their side of the ball, them saying, "Damn, we ain't up by 14, 21 points yet at halftime." It made them make adjustments. We didn't have to make that many adjustments. We just had to be ourselves more than anything.
Yeah, they were down because we scored right before halftime.
Right before halftime.
So the momentum, like I said, changed. We were like, okay, all right, we're in this thing now. Let's go out and play our game in the second half.
It's crazy when you see, like, I've seen like a documentary where it's like the audio from like Denny Green and them, their coaches, like what they're commentating about the game, and I'm like, I mean, he was like,
they were flustered.
They didn't know what to do.
What are you doing? I can't believe this. I was like, oh. So when their little audio came through, I remember before the game started, not just a little pregame thing, but like the music. We didn't really have music blasting that much in our locker room, I would say, but we were so comfortable there. And I remember Dan like dancing, like coming through, like, hey.
Like bobbing his head.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, baby.
Yeah.
I was like,
He was feeling good.
I was like, huh?
Yeah, it's one of those nights.
It's one of those. That's seriously. I was like, then he ended up. Where did he end up? He ended up on stage doing the Dirty Bird, you know. So it was funny. He started the game like that, and I remember, just like, okay, I see, you know. It was just a different, like, we had a different confidence, man, and a different energy.
That almost, the overtime almost didn't happen. We have the ball, we run a play, and I'm the primary receiver on the play. We get the coverage we want, I run it. Chandler throws the ball, and it gets tipped. And the safety, Robert Griffin, dropped it in the end zone. And I was like, oh my goodness, that game could have been over with. So we call a timeout and come back and it's going right to the same play. Because we knew we were going to run the same coverage again. I'm going, oh my God, but I wasn't open on that play. So we run the play, and they run the same coverage. The safety tries to cut me off. Chris holds the ball and waits for me to get by him. And this is probably the hardest ball he probably ever thrown in his life. Because when it hit my chest, it went boom. I was like, whoa. And then I didn't know if I was in the end zone. Now I'm looking around, I seen the ref hand.
I've been thinking about that play all day. I've been thinking about that play
You was
since
the
I
first
saw
one
this
to me.
morning.
You was the first one to me. I got a picture
Yeah,
OJ
it
holding
was
me
such
up.
a relief.
Holding me up.
It was such a relief because
Yeah.
you just watching this happen in slow motion, and I knew we'd already just run the play, and it hadn't worked, and I was like, man, here we go. And I know it's not. I know it's only going to one guy. He's only looking for Terance on this play, so you kind of just waiting. So you're just watching the whole time, and boom, he got it, and it was real close too. But he scored. It was a touchdown. Just like I said, a great game. That's one thing I'd say that year. You always knew fourth quarter, third. It didn't matter how much time was left in the game. You knew somebody was going to make a play, offense or defense. You knew something was going to happen.
That goes back to everybody knew their role, and when it was time for you to play your role, you stepped up. It wasn't like, oh, ball coming to me. Oh, I'm not. No, it was like, okay, like Ray said, he thrived in those moments. Oh, we on the field last. This is what we've been practicing for. And I think that's what that 98 team represented. We all knew our roles, and when it was time to step up to play that role, we played it, and we took a bow after it.
Obviously, because you all played your own roles and stepped up when the team needed you the most. When they got the ball back, Gary Anderson came up for a field goal, who hadn't missed a field goal in 2 years. And before we talk about it, let's watch the kick right now.
And this is from 39 yards out. Here's the snap. The kick is up, and it is no good. No good. Gary Anderson has missed a field goal for the first time in 2 years.
Gary Anderson, he doesn't miss, and yet he misses this field goal. Unbelievable. The season isn't over yet.
So it's not over yet.
All right, so talk to me about, they get in field goal position and they bring him out. Did you guys kind of think like, all right?
I was sitting next to Tony Martin, and I was not. We were like, when he was about to take this kick, and Tony Martin was hitting me. He was like, "Jam, look, nobody can be perfect. It's Murphy's Law." And I was like, "It's Gary Anderson, my guy." And I wasn't gonna look at the kick. I wasn't. I was like, I don't want to see him make the kick. I was like, oh, I can't believe this is like how it's going down for us. But he was insistent upon the fact that this man was gonna miss the kick. And watch it. He just kept hitting me, and I was like, okay, Tony. And when I was like, what? I just remember thinking we're grabbing our helmets and running out. But he told me he was gonna miss, and I was like, okay.
Sure. It's kind of weird. It's the first time I think I ever prayed for somebody's downfall.
Yeah.
I mean, because literally,
he's not kidding.
we have been
That's
on
not
the
all.
defensive side of the ball. I'm like, you know what? This dude ain't never missed a field goal, but we felt the pressure because we had some blocks that year. We had some success from our field goal unit, blocking kicks that year. And we all felt that we needed to block this kick out of anything because this dude right here is legit. He is what he is. But we coming around the edges and almost getting it from both sides, and he still got the ball off. I think that's when we was like, dang, that's the first feeling I had, hitting the ground. I think I didn't even look up to see if it actually went in until sort of like late. And it was the feeling of me like, okay, did this dude just finish ending the game? But for kickers, it's kind of weird. A lot of people, Gary never been in that situation to where he actually had to kick in the NFC Championship. His leg probably felt like it had about 20 pounds of lactic acid in it. This dude, he had a lot of pressure on himself to make that kick. And by him missing it, oh my goodness, that changed the whole aspect of everything.
I remember being on the sideline, and we just started grabbing hands.
Yeah.
And we was like,
You ain't prayed that much in your life, did you?
I have never said, please, Lord, let him miss this kick. People say
Give us
God
one more
don't
shot.
pay attention to
Yeah,
football.
before you don't
I
pay
said, but
attention.
this time,
Please
please
pay
do.
attention today. Man, everybody was like holding their breath.
It felt like you knew he was gonna miss, but then it all felt like, well, if he makes it, what's next? So then when he missed, it was like, boy, we were out there on that field in such a hurry. We just marched it down, the big catch, and I think I caught one to make it closer. And
I love
then
the game
again,
plan.
we on the sideline, going, please, Lord, let him make this kick.
For Morten.
Bam, it was.
Yeah, and I think the coaches did a real good job after that, because to coach during those situations, the play calling that we had formulated after Gary missed that right there threw them off guard. I ain't see Minnesota act that weird pretty much throughout that whole game, where they really was falling on the back of their heels, like defensively especially, how the offense actually had them on their heels. They were tired. They ain't never been in a dogfight.
Well,
We've been in dogfights like Jamal and them talked about earlier, and our conditioning, we were like, man, I think we just went into a whole different second wind.
Exactly.
Of knowing that, you know what, this is still possible.
I think they got out of character because they played man to they panicked because they played man to man, and that's what he got on that big play. So they figured we're gonna stop Terance and Tony, play man to man, and make them go somewhere else. He's been
The
playing
other
ball
guys
all
popping up.
year, and they matched him up, and he beat. Oh man!
I think Ronnie Harris had a catch
you
too.
look at it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Ronnie had a big catch during
Yes.
that drive too. So you
They
think,
panicked. We didn't panic.
yeah.
They panicked.
And when we had a good game plan going into it, as that whole game was going, like we talked about them being up a lot. I even had to eat my ego a little bit, because I never forget going into that game. They were like, Ray, all right, you normally line up on, the top receiver. We're gonna put you on Chris Carter. We're gonna double Randy. The whole week we practiced not giving up the big play, and there was a lot of times where I actually had to cover Randy. They say give up a lot of the shorter plays, because that's not that's going to kill you. They used to being up on teams from airing it out. So let's just take away the deep ball, and pretty much methodically made them do that and have to change their whole game plan. Running the ball, Robert Smith. I think Jesse Tuggle took the heart out of Robert Smith. Like literally, he ain't never been hit that hard before in his life. It took his soul. Like literally, he didn't want to go back out there and play, and he wasn't even running. He was tiptoeing. And when we started to see that we was hitting them in the mouth, from a defensive standpoint of view, we had them in the dogfight going into that overtime. We was like, all right, let's go. Because our boys was already on the road. We got them right where we want them, because they out of character, even calling the offensive plays. So it's like, all right, we in this. We just might just get over the hump. We just didn't know who was gonna make the play to seal it.
Let's talk about the overtime really fast here, because you keep going back and forth with the ball from the Vikings to you guys. And finally, the Falcons get it down to field goal range for Morten Anderson to have an opportunity. But before we talk about that opportunity, I want you guys to kind of talk about who Morten was and who he was as a kicker and a guy on your team.
Kickers, man, kickers. But I tell you,
that was the biggest goofball. That dude was funny as all
Yeah.
get out, though. He was hilarious. He was just one of the guys. He was fun to be around.
I just remember, and this is, being a young guy in camp in my early years, you never would see Mort. Where's Mort? And they'd always say
he was just kicking it.
He would be in Denmark or somewhere. They were like, not even in the country. And he would be out the country during training camp in the earlier months, and he'd just show up when it was time to go. And you just knew you had a great kicker. And we knew he was going to make that kick. There was never a time when Mort lined up when you're like, we don't know if we got this.
He made so many do it.
Yeah, no, we were going to get the kick, and we knew Mort was going to do it.
It was funny because we used to have a saying. I say, we get the ball last. I said, Morten, where do you need me to put the ball? And he'd tell me. I says, okay. So I catch it, and I says, that good enough? He said, yeah, that's good enough. 59 yards, boom, good. So when you knew you had a weapon like that, it made it easier for you to play offense, because you know, okay, we crossed the 50, all right, now we at the 35, all right, we stalled, okay, here come 3 points. You knew that, and that was Morten Anderson.
Well, Morten was called up for the kick, so before we talk about it, let's watch it.
He hasn't had a bigger kick in his career than this right here. Morten Anderson, the left-footed kicker, the soccer-style kicker, attempting a 38-yard field goal to put the Falcons in the Super Bowl. Straczynski to hold from the near side hash. Here's the placement. The kick, high, end over end. It's gone, and the Falcons are going to the Super Bowl!
The Falcons are going to the Super Bowl! The Falcons have done it! They have done the unthinkable. They have won inside the Metrodome, and the celebration is underway on the field.
I mean, it's one of the most iconic moments in Falcons history, right?
Man.
What was the sideline like? Talk to me about that.
It was pretty crazy. I think everybody was holding hands, and you saw a bunch of guys there, like, obviously praying and hoping for the best scenario.
But still, you want to be sure.
I was still mad. I was still mad. I was mad now just that I told you we were going to win, and I told you we were going to the Super Bowl, and I was just mad that nobody had been listening.
Nobody believed you, right?
And I just remember running across that field being so relieved that we had won that game. Because like I said, it was such a close game. It was back and forth the whole time. And but I was still mad. And I just remember, we're going to Miami for this Super Bowl, man. And you couldn't have told me we weren't going to win that too, to be honest.
I was fired up. I was so excited. I mean, I don't know if I've been that happy playing the game ever. I think I had more enjoyment out of knowing that I was going to the Super Bowl than actually playing in the Super Bowl.
That's right.
That
makes
makes
sense.
like,
That makes a lot of sense.
man, it was the best feeling because it finally felt like, David took down Goliath. It was we were such underdogs in a lot of people's eyes, and for us, after the kick, I had goosebumps. I mean, I was running around like a little kid out there, like, jumping around. You saw a bunch of guys, acting out of character. These grown men around here acting like little kids, look like they run around with diapers on.
And crying and running around.
I remember. We just literally making history, and I was.
And you couldn't get too close to Dan because he was just coming off
coming
surgery.
off,
So
yeah.
you couldn't.
He was
Coach,
like this,
he always
he
like
like,
this. You couldn't run up
pushing
on
you
Dan
back
too
and-
much because
You shake his hand.
Yeah, it'd be easy with Coach, but you're worried people are going to rough the coach up. But that was a great.
I remember we were obviously being on stage and celebrating was awesome when everybody was doing a Dirty Bird and Dan was doing it. They were like, after that, they were like, hey, take the NFC trophy around the stadium and celebrate with your friends. And the TV production, it was a production, And of course, being the thespian that I am, I'm like, generate some tears, my G.
He said, generate some tears.
It's gonna look better in 20 years, Jam.
I remember sitting in the locker room and, Tony and I, we were sitting there, we talked about the game. And then, Tony had played in the Super Bowl before, I have not. And I just went back to when I first started playing. And you always pick up whatsoever at the park with your friends, and you always talk about this catch is for the Super Bowl or this and that. And you always thought as a kid when you first started playing this game, I'm playing the Super Bowl. And I'm winning the Super Bowl. I'm playing Super Bowl. I'm winning Super Bowl. And then the opportunity to get there is something that you've dreamed of as a child. It was amazing. Then when you look back 25 years later, and you go, hey, there's some Hall of Famers that ain't played in the Super Bowl. We did something some teams have done before. This is special. So it's a special time, and it's something that no one, even though we did not win that game, you cannot take away that we were NFC champions.
Yeah,
you can't take that away.
I think that anybody who's played this game on any level, can tell you how hard it is to get to the championship rounds. Like, how many things have to go right to be 14-2, to go on the road and play Hall of Famers back-to-back games, and then do all the other things. I think what makes it so special is, like you said, you dreamed of this. You dreamed of making it to a Super Bowl like your whole football life, and so you just sit back and like, man. You made it, you got there, and you won the conference, and it was like just to have an opportunity to play for a Super Bowl. I mean,
I was cracking up at how, this is the only part that was a little out of character, just seeing how it worked. It was funny seeing how everybody behind the scenes, that actually help us get to where we were, to make us as comfortable, from administration, management, to everybody else, and then actually having to prepare for the Super Bowl, knowing that, you about to go to Miami. It was comical. I was like, man, we were getting first class treatment, from, people that was upstairs. I was like, man, where y'all at the whole season? Y'all take, man, we was getting.
Hey, you want a cookie?
Yeah, I was like, what? Everybody, I mean, it was first class the way they handled everything, and nobody's never been there before. Right. The team ain't never been there before. And it was like, Dan And yeah, been there, with some of the other coaches and maybe one or two other players with Biscuit being there, but Cornelius Bennett. But at the same time, nobody had been there before. So, I thought that everybody handled themselves from upstairs all the way down through the players, like with the utmost love. It was crazy. Everybody enjoyed it. And when we got back from that game, when we got off the plane, let alone
from the NFC Championship.
From the NFC Championship game,
That was crazy.
them fans, this is the first time, normally we get on a bus. We never went through the airport. This was the first time we ever went through the airport. And when we got off, we didn't know what was going on while we was going through the terminal. But when we got off the plane, fans were lined up all the way through from the gate, through the terminal, all the way until we exited all the way out. I ain't never seen that many.
And then thousands of people came to Swanee.
And Swanee.
Thousands.
They had to cut off the highway to get us through, to get up across the bridge, and it was like, it's a ghost town. And when we turned in there, and it
was a sea
people
of people. I'm like,
everywhere. It was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Didn't want to go home that night. Like, God, dog, but I gotta go.
Well, you guys punched your ticket to the first Super Bowl the Falcons had ever been to before, and you're going to be taking on the Denver Broncos, who Dan Reeves knew a little bit about. And you also knew someone from the Denver Broncos, and I want to talk to you specifically about Shannon Sharpe.
My dog, Shannon Sharpe.
You have 2 weeks off from the NFC Championship to the Super Bowl, and you all are seeing more media than you probably ever had before, but you specifically went toe-to-toe with Shannon Sharpe. What was that all about?
See, a lot of people don't know me and Shannon boys. We were really cool, like this whole time. We talk about it. A lot of people thought we really had beef. But what happened, how it actually started, we got tired of talking about football. Like, we literally got there a week early. And, with media day and all that was one thing. But we also had extra media days. And what happened was Shannon actually threw the first blows, but it wasn't particularly at me. And he talked about Will White and Eugene Robinson. He said, he was talking about beating all of the safeties, and he's never played two safeties as old as, he said, Noah and Methuselah, or Noah and Moses. And I was like, what? He just called my dog? I was like, and I talked to Eugene and Will. I was like, y'all got to say something about it. He's like, no, that's just Shannon. Let Shannon be Shannon. I was like, nah, So that's how I got it. So when they got to me, this is how it all started. When they got to me and they was talking about, what did you feel about what Shannon Sharpe said about Will White and Eugene? And that's when it came out, and I started cracking jokes on Shannon, and he's talking about calling him Mr. Ed, and he's been talking all this other stuff. But Shannon came back. It actually went on back and forth for a minute. It was kind of weird, like for a couple days actually. And then Shannon talked about me. He said he wouldn't pick me up, if it was in the snow. Does he like me? No. He said a bunch of different things about me. Talking about cross dress and all the time. Shannon funny is. If you know Shannon, he's gonna crack a lot. But we crack a lot of
now.
Yeah. Shannon's the GOAT now when it comes to cracking the word. But everybody didn't know that we crack as many jokes as well. So and then we were going back and forth. So. But at the same time, we were at the Pro Bowl that year as well, and we was having the same session. A lot of people don't know we was having that same crack session and joking on each other, sitting at the pool and with a lot of other people sitting around, and we just battling it out. But it was just fun and more entertaining to talk about something other than football at that time.
Yeah, y'all had seen media more than probably you ever had that whole season, or maybe in your whole NFL career. What was the whole week like of Super Bowl media?
Well, I think it was still, we still, I know they toy with it, they go back and forth sometimes, but we still had it where it was 2 weeks. So you kind of got to bask in the glory for the whole 2 weeks. So that was cool.
At least
like
the
you
first
said,
week for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot more. So stuff that we hadn't been doing all year long. So that national TV audience, being in front of them, it was cool. It was a great week. We got down there, coach had us down there a full week early, so you're in the city, relaxing. I thought the team did a great job in terms of the hotels and treated everybody right. It was a great week.
We had characters on our team, so, they lended themselves perfectly well to the extra exposure from the media. Right. Like, from Ray to, OJ to Terance or Tony, Bob Whitfield, Chuck Smith, outstanding. You know, just good guys who handle themselves very, very well, and were not afraid to be in front of the cameras or in the light like that, you know. So I think it made it more fun too, for a lot of reasons, and for our fans coming down for the Super Bowl. Which is the one thing that makes me so mad about losing that game, is we had the whole damn stadium. Like it was crazy because Denver was in the Super Bowl the year before. You know, they won the Super Bowl the year before, but it was like, you know, Super Bowl audiences are very interesting and kind of corporate-y, but there was a lot of people wearing our jerseys. Like Diddy and his whole posse were moving, like all of the bad boy guys and Jermaine Dupri and all of them, like everybody you want that's fresh at the Super Bowl, they were all in Falcons gear. Everybody. And I was like, man, it was crazy. I was like, I hosted the Madden Bowl that week, and John Madden pulled up, and we were on South Beach, and it was like nothing but Falcon stuff. And I was just like, wow, there were so many people.
The media, the media for me was, after we had the big media day, I was done with it. Let's go play football. Yeah. You know, I wouldn't, you know, like you said, we had a cast of characters. We all had our own way of doing things, and I just wanted to play football. Okay, well, because you kept getting the same questions over and over again. And I'm like, okay, enough. If you ask me that question again, I'm gonna get up and walk away. And the thing is, you know, yeah, all right, we got our shine. We know what, let's go play football now. And that, it just lasted too long. I just thought we had too many, I thought I had too many cameras and microphones in my face that week.
I also thought, you know, a lot of times when you getting that attention, you know, a lot of us wanted the attention at that, because we felt like we wasn't getting the respect that was actually deserved. Right. But you also got to see a lot of the different personalities from everybody too, you know. But after so many questions, like he was saying, that's why I said that we started talking about anything but football. You know, it was like, you know, you get asked the same questions over and over. We wanted to, like, all right, you know, eventually play football, but you know, they probably cracking jokes because I put on the dog collar. You know, they were like, you know, what you put on a dog collar for? It was I put on a dog collar because we were heavy underdogs. And they didn't think, a lot of players didn't think I was actually gonna do it. Matter of fact, when I was walking out with it, I was walking next to Dan. He was like, "What you doing with that? You bring your dog out here or something?"
Oh my goodness!
And I was like, "No, I got a surprise for you." And I remember him putting his head down. He's like, "Oh Lord, he don't know what I'm about to do." And so I put the dog collar on.
None of us knew what you were about to do.
I put the dog collar on, and then I went into explaining it. I was like, "Y'all ain't gonna ask no football questions today, are you?" so you had to explain the fact that we were underdogs at that particular time too. After we beat Minnesota, what?
Right.
How can you be underdogs still?
Yeah, so it's a long time between the championship game and then the Super Bowl. Lots of media, like we've discussed, lots of headlines. But on the Saturday night and Sunday morning, there were a lot of headlines regarding the Falcons and decisions that were made off the field. For you as the team and preparing for one of the biggest games in your life, how did those decisions off the field change the way that you prepared for the Super Bowl?
Okay, here it is. I remember waking up the morning and turning on ESPN, and it said some breaking news from Miami, blah, 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 and I'm thinking, then I said, what? I said, no, that can't be right. So my wife was there, she stayed in another room, I called her, and she said, yeah, it happened. So I remember that morning going to the family breakfast, and I had my wife, she was on my arm, I said, baby, today is a big day. I said, this is the Super Bowl. I said, I can't get distracted by this. But then you walk in and it was like we were at a wake or something. And no one's talking, no one's looking at each other. All you can hear is plain clacking. And I'm going, what in the world is going on? And I was kind of disturbed by that. I says, this is the biggest game of our life. I says, I get it, and I understand it. I says, but we still got to go play football. I says, we can deal with this after the game is over with. We can't allow this to affect what we're about to do. And but as we said off air, we've answered this question so many times, and what I want fans to understand, the Eugene Robinson incident is not the reason we lost that football game. And I don't know about the defensive side of the ball, what happened to the defensive side of the ball, but I feel that we played well in between, but I don't think we lost that game. I don't think we sat in the huddle, OJ and Jamal, said, man, this Eugene Robinson thing is really bothering me. I don't think we did. Oh man, without Eugene, with the Eugene thing, we're gonna lose. I don't think we didn't think that. But when you fail at something, somebody has to be the scapegoat. And just that situation that happened, Eugene became that scapegoat.
So here was my story. So literally, like the day before the game, that evening, normally, everybody probably studying and looking at film, but it actually happened, the arrest actually happened in the afternoon. The post with the news, with the media and stuff, everybody thought it actually happened in the evening. And so literally, I got a phone call later on that evening. And at first I heard about it on, the TV in my hotel room. And as I'm looking up, I'm like, hey, Eugene, what's going on? I like, turn that up. And if it's a picture of Eugene or him talking, that's one thing. But he was, he had a corner box. In the corner of the box.
So that ain't good. That ain't good.
Was that
the corner box, the
night
mugshot.
That was the next
That's
morning.
the night before. So the night before.
I didn't think
So
nobody
you
knew that
forget, Jam,
night.
that night, literally, I'm like, my hotel phone ringing. I'm like, hello? He's like, oh, yo, this baby. I was like, G, everything good, bro? And he was like, I just need you to come down to my room. I explain everything when you get there. So I'm putting down the thing, and I'm putting on my robe, sliding on house shoes, running down the hallway, knock on the door. I knock on the door. I'm like, dang, wait a minute, I'm the last one to get. I'm looking at a lot of the team leaders in that in the meeting room. So Dan Reeves in there, Jam in there, Chuck in there, Bob, amongst others, sitting in there, and he wanted to address all of us. Gene wanted to tell us what happened himself. And Dan said that he thought that he had the right to at least, explain to us. And after Gene told us officially sort of like what happened, Dan left it up to us as a team collectively to say at that particular time, do you think, first he asked Gene, do you think you able to play in this game? And then Gene, Gene had been crying a lot because he was mad that he was put the team in that situation at that particular. He couldn't really talk too much about it because of the legal ramifications from it. But for us, we believe Gene and what actually had happened. And then for him, they said, that should he play? A lot of us voted like, yeah. Heck yeah, he should play. Gene, get it together. I don't give a darn. What happened? We done got here this far. You playing? Are you good? As long as you good, I'm good.
I feel like a lot of the guys didn't really even know it happened until like the morning of the game. And at that, there's a handful of us who knew that it had happened. And then it was addressed to the team like the morning of the game. And I feel like at that point, it was like, if your mentality wasn't like already ready for the Super Bowl, does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
It was kind of like I compartmentalized it immediately. But also, I love Eugene Robinson. He was not a good teammate. He was an outstanding teammate. And what he meant to us and the energy that he brought and just his presence in general was out to me. I can't, and I will never change about this. Yeah. And I sat in front of the cameras right after the Super Bowl, and they were like, Jamal, all the cameras are on me, and I was like, ain't no way. I'm sure he could probably pick out some things that happened to him during the course of that game, but I will never, ever blame Eugene for us losing that game because we just, I could start
out of character. It was out of character that whole game.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of Eugene Robinson.
I didn't watch that game for like 20 years.
I've never watched the game.
Yeah. I had to do this thing, and so I'm watching us go up and down the field, like that first drive. Yeah. And then we, instead of scoring, we kick a field goal. Like little weird things happen. Eugene now listen, he hadn't given up a big play and Rod got behind him. That had not happened all year. Right. So we had some
I always wonder when I think back from myself being on offense, preparing for the game that morning. It's a shock. Wow, this is going on. It's a distraction, and those are never good. But I could never say it affected us on offense how we played. I will say I always do wonder if he played his best game. You'd have to ask him. He didn't seem to be the same guy. Right. He was a big guy in terms of his presence and whatnot. So that was all kind of toned down. And I don't know how that affected the defense, but
I'll tell you how it affected it here in a second. But it was fun. Let's go back to the locker room. Now, remember, in the locker room, I don't care what it was, y'all was playing like Lil Jon. It was always, the South music, whatever it was. But I never get Gene coming on. His only part, I said, Gene, you tripping now. I said, I'm with you. But he went over there and put on Kirk Franklin. I was like, we ain't listen to no Kirk Franklin right before we go out here to play the Super Bowl. Let me change it. So guys started arguing about what music was supposed to be played. Dan was like, you know what, turn off all the music. That was the only time I was like, wait a minute, all right, we getting out of character now. Yeah. But I still didn't think or blame stuff on Gene. Defensively, they speaking from the offense. We didn't stop the run. TD, them boys, Terrell Davis ran up and down the field, on us. Elway played his butt off, and they were the better football team that day. And you can't take nothing away from what the Denver Broncos did. You can't blame it on Gene. Nobody could. Because, at the end of the day, we all accountable for what we did out there on the football field and how we actually played. That game right there, I was mentally so prepared that you couldn't take anything. I pictured so many.
I pictured a win.
Pictured a win, too. After beating Minnesota, I looked at Denver like, what?
We just beat the
biggest juggernaut ever. Denver? Nah, we about to get there.
And these games are famously scripted.
Yeah.
So the script said Elway rides off
in the sunset
on a white horse on the Dirty Bird's damn back. I saw the script before the game, and I was like, he already shoot the Disney commercial?
Yeah. And that's something.
That's the conspiracy.
That's what I said. How am I telling you something I don't know?
No, we already know this because remember, we got the script too, but we didn't film it.
It's supposed to be when you because I was watching the stuff fall down, and I was like, there go my Disney Channel.
So
it didn't happen. So for us to lose the way we did lose in that game, it hurt me to the gut.
Oh my God,
that was the worst feeling I had ever as a player.
It still hurts me today.
I didn't want. We supposed to have functions that night that we were supposed to actually go to for the family. I didn't even want to go to that. I didn't want to come out. Let alone.
It was a weird game for us.
It was.
But what was crazy? What was crazy is the response we still got from the fans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we got back when we got back.
Parade.
We had a parade and everything. It was like, man, I was like, do y'all know we just finished losing? They forgot all about the loss. More importantly, they were excited about all of the other accomplishments and celebrating the season because Atlanta has never been on that. They have so close, but no cigar.
I think we can beat them right now. Let's go play, man. God, dog, man.
They might want it.
Don't do it again. Rerun. Run it back. Run it back.
Well, you guys had a historic season, historic postseason as well, all led by Coach Reeves, who sadly passed away last year on January the 1st. Before we talk about who he was, not just to this team and the NFL as a whole, let's take a look back at his legacy with the Falcons.
I told you, you're going to do a great job coaching. I'm going to do a great job running. Now, all these people, go get your playoff tickets.
We are in the playoffs, that's true. It's something we dreamed about since we were a little bit of kids, right? We have 60 minutes to fun and get out and win this thing on 3. 1, 2, 3, win!
Sidelines. He is angry at the referees. Be careful.
Guys, obviously, just a legendary coach. What did Dan Reeves mean to you guys?
Dan, was not just like a father figurehead. He was a leader. He encouraged. He was a mastermind of putting players together. I've never seen someone that can put a coaching staff and put players together, within a certain amount of time to get players to gel. And if you, as a coach, the one thing that you always want to be is a person that can actually lead and also get your players to respond. We responded to Dan. Dan knew how to communicate with us. He knew how to have the right coach that can communicate with us. And I thought that, the way we practiced was the way we played, and everything that he actually installed in us wasn't just from a football standpoint of view, but he was also training us how to be professionals, how to be, great fathers, so it's him and his wife, Pam. I mean, I take my hats off to him because she was the backbone to him. And what he did was deliver what he got from his family and how he handled family, and he gave it to us. And, he would be well missed. And by far for me, he was like the best head coach I've ever, played for. Yeah.
Every time I watch it, I get a little emotional. Dan, for me, brought the best out of me because he challenged me all the time. When he first got here, he says, "Oh, you're not a really big receiver. You're not the type of receiver I'm looking for." So I think that was his head game, and he brought the best out of me with that aspect of it. And he was one of those where you can talk honestly to him, and he can talk honestly to you, and you can receive it without jumping back at him. I remember a time, his first year, we played after a game. He was in the newspaper talking about the receivers don't make a lot of runs after catch whatsoever, this and that. So that week in practice, I walked up to him. I said, if I ever have to read that again in the newspaper, I'm going to blow up your car. And some of the guys heard it and started laughing. And he had, after that, if he had a problem with me or the receivers, he'd come in our meeting room and come to me and says, "Hey, you guys are not doing this or you're not doing that." I remember my daughter being born and my son being born during that time. And he says to me, he says, "You got to be there." He says, I was there. I wasn't there when my children was born because I was so in, and I regret that. He says, "Go be with your family." And I said, wow, who says that? Most coaches say, "No, you got to be here, blah, blah, blah. You leave, I'm going to fire you. Go be with your family." And I thought that was huge. And I thought the characters that we had on that team brought out the youthfulness of Dan. And he made us professionals. Who takes a team on the road and says, "Hey, no meetings, curfew"? Goes West Coast, wake up in the morning, we have breakfast, go to the stadium, have a little walkthrough. We'll be done at 10 and don't want to see you again until tomorrow morning. Curfew at 11. But he held us responsible. He made us responsible to not only to ourselves, but to each other. And I never forget that, never ever forget that. And the attention to detail made me a better man of being more attention to detail. Even when I'm coaching, I'm more attention to detail because the details which make you great, which makes you great.
Yeah, I just really, having a coach who was also a player, it was my first head coach in the NFL, so I didn't really realize it made a difference. You get onto other teams and other head coaches and you realize this guy never played any football, man. And you can't really say it because it's a sensitive topic for a lot of these guys, right? But it was a difference knowing that your coach played out here, and that he was a dog when he played, that he won championships as a player, that he played in the highest level as a coach. It just instantly, anything he said to you, you just really took it to the bank. And later you'd realize it's not always like that. You get some places, you get around some coaches, and you realize I really had a great head coach my first time out.
Yeah, and you think about, as you mentioned, and you think about where he's come from and his legacy, and being a player coach for Tom Landry. That level of what was expected and how much he had to know and how he had to run the offense and the implementation of those things. And so you look at his pedigree. I mean, he comes from, one of the greatest coaches to ever coach any sport at all. And then, he does what he does and is a part of, 7 Super Bowls, as a coach or a player. I love that. I love Coach Reeves. I mean, I had a great relationship with him. I think I probably pushed him farther than anybody.
Did you?
He was tremendously understanding when it came, like Terance said, anything about your family or your kids. And, I scheduled one of my daughter's births right when training camp started so I could take a couple extra days off. And he knew it. He was like, I see what you're doing, but go ahead. I'm like, all right. But, like I could think of so many things. Like he was just understanding. Like I remember like I was going up to shoot Oprah Winfrey show. It was like during the week. And he was like, man, Pam's going to see you on there. You go. I was like, man, I'm missing practice? Like, so he was just so... He just got it, you know what I mean? And I feel like the energy that he had when he got here and putting this team together and the run that we had, especially what he went through that year, I just think it made everybody just that much closer, So that was one thing for us. Obviously, you're disappointed when you lose a Super Bowl, but for us it stung a little bit more because it was the Broncos, and he had such success there, but was not able to win a Super Bowl there, So it was kind of like this whole storybook thing. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but we had a great time with him. I was honored to be at his service when he passed away. Just a tremendous guy, and you could tell his impact with just the people that were there and the coaches that he brought up. And he just loved his players, and you could tell, and that it mattered to him so much. And he loved to win. He really did. But he knew what he was doing, man. And so, it stinks that he didn't get a chance to win more Super Bowls or we didn't win, because I think, if he wins one here and one in Denver, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it says, he appeared in 7 Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. You know how hard it is to appear in a Super Bowl?
In one Super Bowl, right? Just one last thing. I just remember, the phone calls, especially after that 99 season. I would just remember the phone calls, My wife answering the phone, and she got off the phone. I said, who was that? That was Dan. I said, what did he want? He wanted to make sure you were okay. What head coach, what head coach calls a player to make sure he's okay after a loss or something like that, So he took interest in you because he knew who you were, and he wanted to make sure you were okay, And I remember when 9/11 hit, and we had a meeting, and he knew what was about to happen. They was going to cancel the games that week whatsoever, and we, back then, a lot of guys that make a lot of money. So he said to the group, he says, hey, if you have any money problems, come to me. I'll pay you out my own pocket. And a couple of guys went to him because they knew, hey, I needed that check that week. So that's what kind of man Dan Reeves was. He cared about his players. He cared about men.
It's definitely a legendary coach and coached a very legendary season. Guys, thank you so much for coming. It's been so fun to recap the '98 year. So thank you guys for coming and talking to me.